Hi everyone, Quiveen here from MTU's Blackrock Castle Observatory. We're here looking into the evening sky on Wednesday the 13th of January, and we'll be looking from this evening to the next couple of evenings to see what's in the sky, what's going to change. We're going to start by looking just over the sunset very early in the evening, just a little after 5 o'clock, where we might catch a glimpse of Jupiter and Mercury. They're both very, very low in the sky. They're both very, very faint due to the orange-yellow glow of sunset blocking out our view. But it is pretty much our last chance to catch Jupiter before it disappears behind the sun for a while and subsequently pops up in the morning. Mercury, it's just our first chance to see Mercury. It's going to stay visible for the next few days. Mercury will get easier and easier to see, but it is only in our sky for a short period of time. It's got a very short year, a very short orbit around the sun, so that means it's only visible very, very close to sunset or sunrise and only for a reasonably short period of time. So we're just starting to see Mercury, but it's about our last chance to see Jupiter. So we'll pull out from those two and take a look a little bit higher into the sky where we have Mars, and Mars is going to be a little bit more constant for the rest of the month. It's going to be up nice and high in the sky, roughly towards the south around sunset. So as it gets darker for the next couple of days, as it comes up to real darkness, 6 or 7 o'clock, that's when Mars really come close to the south. As we get later in the month, it will be closer to the south as the sun sets. So this means that Mars won't be up all night. It will go down before sunrise. So that means we won't get a full chance to see the entire rotation of Mars if we do take a closer look. But if you look at Mars at the same time of the evening, a few nights in a row, you will start to see that it is turning. Mars turns at very nearly the same speed as we do. Its day is just a little bit longer at about 25 hours. So over the course of a few days, we can see that it hasn't quite turned as much as we have in the same amount of time. We're turning just a little bit faster. So that gives us a chance to see different parts of Mars just by going out at the same time on different nights. But it's going to stay lovely and visible for the entire month, so we don't have to worry too much. We have lots of time to take a look at Mars. The moon isn't going to be too prominent for most of the evening. It's going to come up a little bit more as we get later into the month. It'll be very close to Mars in the sky as we come into next week. We do have a lot of nice constellations here as well, and even in the city, a few very prominent constellations are becoming visible, such as the constellation of Orion over towards the east. Orion's a great part of the sky to take a closer look. Orion's belt is probably one of the most famous parts of Orion and one of the most famous groups of stars in the sky, this little trio of stars right here. But just under that is Orion's sword, another grouping of stars in a nice straight line. Orion's sword in particular has a lot of nice fuzzy nebulosity, so there's a lot of nice details there that you can see when you take a closer look with a telescope. Now really this is true for the whole constellation of Orion. Almost every part of the constellation has some fuzziness or nebulosity going on around the big bright stars. But Orion's sword in particular is a very, very bright area of the sky. It's much easier to see than some of the other fainter nebulae. And Orion is over in the direction of the back end of the Milky Way. So the center of the Milky Way, the center of our galaxy, it's almost down towards the west at this time of the year. It's definitely behind the sun. So we're looking out towards the back end of the Milky Way here. We can see the Plough, the Big Dipper, is just over there in the north, so we're looking into the east-northeast. The area of the sky where we see the Milky Way is always a great place to point your telescope. There's so much more balls of stars, clouds of gas around the arms of our galaxy than there are when we look into the deeper, more empty parts of space outside the disk of the Milky Way. If you took a look at some of our shorter Twitter videos, then I've already mentioned the little globular cluster of stars we're about to take a look at, the January salt and pepper cluster. We do post some short videos on our Twitter as well as posting more of these videos on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in the stars, planets and night sky, then make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you do, make sure to click the little blue bell icon to make sure you get all of the notifications. We're here just looking into the bottom of the constellation of Auriga. So it's just a little bit above and to the left of Orion in the sky. It's got this nice pentagonal shape. and we're just looking down into the bottom of it. This part of the Milky Way out towards the back, away from the center, has fewer globular clusters. We usually see more of those towards the middle of our galaxy, towards the nucleus. So we don't see as many of them out here, but we do still find them. There's plenty of these balls of stars floating around our galaxy. Some of them are very densely packed together, others are a little bit looser like this one, so we can clearly see the individual stars in this group. But they are pretty much on the outside of our galaxy, almost like little moons orbiting around. And I'll just bring up the names if I can to show that this is the January Salt and Pepper Cluster. Doesn't seem to want to let me bring those up, but you can trust me, it is the January Salt and Pepper Cluster that we have just over here. There are plenty of things in the night sky named after different parts of the year, usually to do with the time of year in which they are visible. So some things like the summer triangle are best seen in the summer, and the January Salt and Pepper Cluster does look pretty nice in January. It's up nice and early over towards the eastern part of the sky. So this is all stuff that we can take a look at here in the city, but of course it does look a little bit better in the countryside, and it's a little bit easier to see. So we'll stick to those same areas, Orion and the bottom here of Auriga, but we'll take away the light pollution and see how that affects our view. So light pollution, of course, it's the light that a city produces that shines up into the sky, and that can block our view of stars, planets, and particularly faint objects. Brighter things can often shine through light pollution, but the less of it you have, the more of these fainter objects that you get to see. So here we can see that this is the back end of the Milky Way and that Orion is very close to it. We're almost looking in the direction of these outer arm areas of our galaxy. Taking a look now under Orion's belt, Orion's sword is clearly visible even without a telescope, and as soon as we start to take a closer look, we're seeing lots of that nice fuzzy nebulosity, not just around Orion's sword, but all the way around the constellation. So this fuzzy, soft, reddish glow is known as Barnard's Loop. It's very hard to see, but it's a huge, expansive bubble, a huge void in space, and it's pretty much centered here around the body of Orion. We can see more nebulosity here towards the top of the constellation as well. We can see that there's plenty of other groups of stars and clouds of gas as we look towards even this back end of the Milky Way. And here, just at the bottom of Auriga, we can see the Milky Way is going straight through here, straight through this section of the sky where we see the January Salt and Pepper Cluster. So we are really looking a little bit past the Milky Way to see this globular cluster. It's a little bit further from us than these stars that are forming parts of the arms of our own galaxy. So these globular clusters are really interesting. They're often very, very old stars that have drifted away from the rich star-forming regions that we see inside the galaxy, which is what we see here with Orion. And from these rich star-forming regions, these clouds of gas, we get another type of cluster, not a globular cluster, but an open cluster. Globular clusters can be very densely packed together, even though the January Salt and Pepper cluster isn't. Whereas open clusters, they're open, you almost always get to see the different stars that are there. So this is one of them. This is the Pleiades, or the Pleiades, the seven sisters. We can see here in close-up that there's a lot more than 7 stars, but if you're just using your naked eye in a particularly dark sky with no light pollution, you should get to see 6 or 7 stars here in this little grouping. If we come back to the level of light pollution that we normally get in a city like Cork, then you're more likely to see 3 or 4, and they are going to be noticeably fainter. So these are some things that are particularly nice early in the evening. We're still just at 6:30 here, and it's already nice and dark. They're all visible over towards the east, opposite side of the sky to the sunset, and that often means, even though there's a bit of a glow in the west, it's still nice and dark over in the east. So you can start looking for these things quite early in the evening, and then if you have a telescope or binoculars, you can start taking a closer look and seeing some details. So I hope you get a chance to see a few of those objects in the sky. And if you are particularly interested in these things, then you can think about studying them in college. There are plenty of places around Ireland that not only give you a chance to study how to study these objects, but even study the things that we use to study them, like studying the instruments, the telescopes, and the cameras that we use. So if you found this video interesting, make sure to take a look around and see if you can find some other resources to do with stars, planets, and astronomy.